Ogle. I'm a partner at Tub Atomic, a local design firm here in town. I've been involved in all sorts of types of projects for Tub Atomic. We started off the company as an entertainment company. So we started off doing animation. And then that eventually drove into design and other. Oh, thank you.
I'm so sorry.
And here's your coffee, by the way. I don't want you to miss that. Okay. There. So we started off the company doing animation, and then we ended up going into more of a design role, and we work with companies doing design, and that's mainly interactive web and that kind of thing. And a few years ago, I wanted to get back into doing comic book illustration, and so I started creating an online brand of myself and just releasing Kickstarter projects and doing the art and the stories myself. And that's been a lot of fun, and now it's led into doing illustrations for all sorts of companies and things like that. But what we're here to talk about today is mystery. And really what I want to talk about is how we add mystery to our creative lives, our careers, really. And so much of our time is planning out our projects and saying, okay, here's our deadlines, here's this and that. And we try to anticipate the reactions of how these projects will live in the world. And we do that for our clients, we do it for ourselves and everybody. But really, that kills the mystery. And so what I'm suggesting today is that we add that mystery back in. And I'm going to give you some examples of how to do that. And one of the talks that I really love is a TED Talk by J.J. Abrams. And he did a talk called The Mystery Box, where he talked about how mysteries are in everything we have and do, and it's a big thing in his work where he did Lost, so it's mystery after mystery after mystery until the very end where there's really no mystery anymore. And then one of the things he said was the best part of a movie tends to be when the lights go down and the curtain starts to open, because that's when we are all anticipating this could be a great enjoyment. This could be a great movie that we could all have a lot of fun with. And then the movie plays out, and a lot of times it lets us down a little bit here and there. But that first part, that's what we want to have. We want to have that enjoyment, that little extra excitement. So, first off, how many people here are creatives that make things, like consider themselves makers? All right, so it's most of the room, right? How many people consider them, or would want to create but never share those creations, like would never do it, right? It's like almost none of us, right? Because we make our projects for people. We make it for an audience. And so really what we are entertainers. We don't think of ourselves that way. We think of musicians as entertainers. We think of all these other people that are artists that do these other things. But really, what we do is entertainment. Because even if you take a web page, a website, and the client gives you a Word doc and a bunch of images and you have to make a website out of it, you think, how can I do that in the most entertaining way? How can I present this information? And so you're doing it even though you don't realize it. And the great thing about being an entertainer is that you get to perform. And we don't usually think about performance, we think about projects. And we kind of downplay any kind of performances. Performances tend to be like what projects are made up of. Maybe it's a drawing, maybe it's a logo design, or anything like that. And so a project is really a collection of performances. So what's the difference between the performance and the project? Well, if you think about it from a musician's standpoint, a performance is like when they get up on stage and perform, but a project would be, let's say they go and record an album. That would be, there's really an expected outcome for the project. That's really the biggest difference, is that you have a performance and there's no expectation of what's going to happen. You just release it and it's supposed to be enjoyable. A project is like there's an end and then it goes out and you expect some kind of return and you anticipate that return, and that can be stressful. It might not turn out the way you expected, that kind of thing. But a performance is just you doing what you're good at and you let people experience it. So this is a new concept, I know, but it's something I think we need to add to our creative lives. It's the piece that we're missing. We're not doing the little performances, because if you share those, people can react positively to them and keep you engaged and keep you excited about your work. So, great things about performances. They're quick, Maybe for me, it's like a sketch. I can do a sketch in the morning, I can release it on Instagram, it goes out, people say, yay, and that's it. And I get that feedback. A project is like drawing a comic book. It's extremely stressful. I do the book, and I work through usually months of time go by. I'm stressed about how it's going to come out and what the reaction is going to be. And sometimes it's been good, sometimes it's been bad. And I don't want those bad times to down my creativity. So it's those performances, those little releases that keep me engaged and keep me going. And so really it's the opportunities are the rewards for what comes, you put the performance out there and then an opportunity comes back, and that's the real reward. People saying it's great is one reward, it's a little boost in confidence, but it's really if you put out an experiment or a piece of art and it comes back and people are like, okay, we want to work with you, or we want you to draw our story, or let's say it's a creative project like a website or something like that. It's like you've made an experimental website, and then companies come to you and say, we want you to build that for us, or that really proved this particular thing, and we want you to do that for us. That's really the reward. That's where you get the hype, and you know you've done something special. So what I want to do is challenge you guys to go out and perform and do these kinds of things. Add performance back into your creative lives as designers or programmers or anything. You can easily, like if you're a programmer, for instance, you could do a code pen and do something creative and crazy and stick it out there and get that reaction, and then that can inspire, you can use that in your work from then on out too. Well, let me give you some examples. Jaya Nitro, which we mentioned earlier, it was an animation, but at first it was going to be a comic book and CD combination, like a release, a book with a soundtrack. That was the concept of the project we were doing. What ended up happening is we started doing black and white animations, and that black and white animations kind of took off. Now this is 1997, 20 years ago. We were doing full screen animation, 9 years before YouTube. And that was innovative at the time, and people really reacted. We had people all over the world that were talking about it. So we ended up doing the animation and scrapping the comic book and the CD altogether. So that's an example of we're heading towards producing a product, but we ended up, the performance of just releasing something to hype the project ended up becoming a whole project in itself. So that's the kind of thing that can happen if you release something and try to inspire others. And so the kind of story behind Jaya Nitro is we ended up getting contacted by a company called Eruptor Entertainment, which was a spin-off company of Top Cow at the time, and they wanted to do an online portal, and they wanted to bring our animation into that. So we ended up producing the animation for them. So that's one way that we released something, we started doing it ourselves, but then that comeback, that project ended up turning into something completely different. And we got that pat on the back of, hey, we are so interested in this, we want you to do it for us. The next one was Mov TV. We did this at Tub Atomic. The point of Mov TV was to experiment with QuickTime. QuickTime in early 2000s was a player, and you'd watch trailers and everything like that in it. Well, we ended up realizing that we could program and do flash work in there. QuickTime is made up of tracks, like an audio track, a video track, that kind of thing. We realized we could put flash tracks in there as well and make them talk to each other and do things. And so we ended up producing this site that was an example of what possibly could be done. So this was just a free website. We did it internally. We released it. But what interesting thing you could do was when you'd click a button on the website, it would launch in the QuickTime player. But you wouldn't know you were in QuickTime player because it would actually custom cut our design. So we could literally, you push a button on the website, we could jump out of the website. And it was really interesting. You had like a PNG layer that you could do the custom cut with. So we designed specifically around that and do our flash files. So these would animate, there'd be buttons, that kind of thing. You could click on and launch other movies or other different objects out of it. And it was a lot of fun, and it got a lot of praise, and even Apple noticed. And so we did a project for a band called The Beautiful Mistake, and released a CD-ROM at the time. That's what you did, was you put these CD-ROMs with music, and people would build these interactive pieces that would come up when you put the CD-ROM in. And so we did a QuickTime, custom cut QuickTime player for that. And it ended up getting an Apple Design Award, and it was really cool, but we didn't expect that. We just did it because it was just a project and kind of thing. But we were performing what we loved doing. So then that led to getting to go speak at WWDC. I spoke on interactive QuickTime there, and I got to see Steve Jobs do a keynote and all that kind of stuff. So that was a completely unexpected thing from releasing a free website. The next is Instagram drawings. Now we've seen a lot of these. This is something I do too. But I release a lot of drawings online and post them usually, not every day, maybe a couple of weeks or so. But I started doing that to kind of hype my artwork. And it was just me performing. Like if I do an illustration, something for a company or something for myself, I'll just take about 4 hours of time. If I do one of these, like a quick little morning thing, I can do it in like 15, 30 minutes. And I wonder why that is. And it's because when I perform, I'm not worried about the goal, the end of the project or anything like that. It's not really a project. It's just me drawing for fun. So I can do things like if I want to play with a character design or something like that, you know, I don't have to worry about specifically having like Batman's like cowl drawn a certain way or anything. I can just experiment with how I want to do it. So you don't worry about how that comes out. And so I kept doing those, and that led to an unexpected outcome. I had Marvel contact me. An art director at Marvel noticed my Instagram account and said, "We want you to do that for us." And so I ended up starting to draw for them, doing projects. And the first one being for all the Netflix properties. So I ended up drawing Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and Punisher and Elektra and Iron Fist, all those characters, officially for once. So I went from doing these little performances and experiments to having to, okay, decide like, this is how I'm going to draw Daredevil from now, and that kind of thing, which was a little bit intimidating and slowed me way down on these. But then that led into doing work for the Guardians of the Galaxy movie that's coming out this year. So I started doing illustrations for that. And they're mainly promotional images and things like that for the movie. But that was a lot of fun and very intimidating because I loved the first movie. But I had to decide how I was going to draw that entire team. Luckily, they were like, the Marvel Studios people, the movie people were like, you got to draw likenesses. So I ended up having to like look at a lot of photo reference and that kind of thing. But then came Spider-Man. So I started doing Spider-Man work, and they let me draw like all sorts of characters, like not just Spider-Man himself, but different characters like Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen and that kind of thing. And got to draw different characters like Venom and Vulture. And that was a lot of fun too. So really, what I'm saying is you can produce these performances and they can inspire these things to happen. Now, normally we're locked into these projects and we're doing these long-term things, and it can be hard to keep up that creative spirit. And what I'm wanting you to do is go out and try to keep that creative spirit and keep going and do small performances and stick these out there. Because without the performances, you can really drag yourself down in projects. And I think that's the part we miss, because we don't think of ourselves as performers, we think of ourselves as people that do projects. And so we only produce that stuff and try to keep that going from project to project deadline. So what I'm challenging you guys with is go out, do performance, and try to get some unexpected and outcomes happening and mystery back into your careers. Thank you.